Howdy and welcome. Did I just say howdy? I never say that. Welcome to All the Stitches. This is a channel about quilting, knitting, needlework, and whatever crafty thing I might be up to in the last couple of weeks. My name is Colleen and I'm coming to you from the Lakes region of New Hampshire in the United States. Today's show is episode 19 and I don't even have a title for it yet because it's kind of a mishmash of things that I've finished. So I have finished objects, I have works in progress, and a few other things. But today will include quilting, knitting, counted cross stitch, and another craft and a finish that I am dying to show you. First of all, I want to thank you if you've turned this on today, and hopefully I can entertain you a little bit and give you some inspiration for your crafting. Thank you to my new subscribers. I've received a couple of new subscribers over the last week or two, and thank you for giving me a try and joining in. I hope you will like what you see, and if you do, hit the thumbs up and leave a comment below. Tell me always, everybody, tell me what you're working on, what you'd like to be working on, what kind of crafting you're doing. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right in to some finishes. Here is my long time project. This is the Pinewood sweater. I'll have to put in the name of the designer down below. It took me a while to do this because it went on timeout for a while. My only problem with this is, it was a free pattern, which is great, but the bottom of the pattern, the design, showed a series of cables that form sort of tree shapes on the bottom. Now, I had trouble executing that, and I know some other people did too, and from their Ravelry comments. So after 4 or 5 different ways, I just did a 2x2 ribbing on the bottom. But otherwise, I love this pattern. It has a nice fold-over collar, so you knit it double length and then turn it under and stitch it together. I love the method. I tie a little yarn in there to show the back of the sweater, but it's front and back design, but I love the yarn. It's Magpie fiber, Swanky DK. I don't remember what this yarn is, but I will again put it down below. And I'm glad to be done, and I'm very happy with the sweater overall. I probably made it a little big, which I seem to always do. I don't know. But it's finished, it's done, and the only reason it's not on is because it's very warm today, and I don't think I could even sit through videoing this with this on. My next finish is counted cross stitch. It's not completely finished, it's not framed, but here it is. This is one of the Holt stitch cards, and obviously for the winter designs. This was stitched on 25 count Laguna, also from Holt, and I just love working on it, and I was very happy that I'm finally able to work on a smaller count. I do have to use magnification for it, but it worked and I enjoyed it, and it's stitched 2 strands over 2, and all DMC colors, but they're one of the Holt collection colors. The exciting thing about finishing that project is it was on my Make 9 list for 2021. And for those not familiar, my episode 16, I talked about my Make 9 projects for 2021. The projects I hope to finish, or at least get, mostly finished this year. So I'm off to a roaring start. I actually did this. I made a board because I found it would just help to focus me a little bit. I can still go off the rails, and believe me, I have. But looky here. This was the sampler I showed you, I believe, last time. Oh yeah, it was my last episode. And this is the stitch cards. And I made these red checks because I needed to celebrate that I actually finished something. Now, you notice there are no other red checks here, but that's okay. It's very early. It's only March, so I'm getting there. Maybe I'll get bingo if I finish my other counted cross-stitch project here. I just thought it was a fun way to kind of keep myself on track, and I prop it up in my sewing room to remind me what I should be doing instead of starting something new. So my next finish is something really fun, and I talked about this last episode 18, Sheep Thrills. Those of you who watch know that I love sheep, and I won't don't worry, I won't get going again, but I do love sheep, and I love crafts that involve sheep. So I made this, I finished this little pincushion representing a sheep named Jubilee, and I spoke about Jubilee in my last episode. Jubilee celebrated her first birthday recently within the last couple of weeks. So I got this little kit, excuse me, it wasn't a kit, it was a pattern from the Woolly Thread Company. Again, I spoke about it my last episode. That's their Jubilee, and here's mine. It was fun to put together. I really, I don't often like little picky own little things like this, but I did enjoy it, and I think because I just love the story of Jubilee so much that I wanted to replicate it. And so what it is the body of Jubilee is made from muslin. I just used a piece of muslin. You sew it together. I painted the nose black. The ears are felt. And then you get wool roving, and you wrap it around the muslin body, and then you needle felt it. So you use the felting needles to try to felt the roving into the muslin. Now, I wasn't really thrilled with the result. The picture shows a very curly sheep. I couldn't get that effect at all, certainly not with wool roving, but I was happy just to get it wrapped around and felted, with the needles into the muslin so that it's not going anywhere. And then the little pillow she's sitting on is wool felt. Don't you know I happen to have these little bells? I mean, this is why it's good to be a craft hoarder. It really is. I needed them for something somewhere along the way. And so I found them. I actually was able to find them, which is something to be jubilant about. And I just stitched those on. So it's stuffed with, I put in a little, what I had left of the wool roving. And then it really wasn't enough. I didn't want to have to buy a whole bag of something. So I had some plastic beads that you would put in like a beanbag type beads, and I just filled the rest of it with that. And then you have an opening on the bottom. So on the bottom you put in, after you've stuffed it, you put a hexagon on and stitch it down to cover up the hole. So it was really a fun, you also stitch around the edge. I just did a chain stitch around the edge just to kind of cover that seam. But I really love it. Will I use it as a pincushion? I'm not so sure. I just kind of enjoy having a Jubilee of all my own to share my quilting studio. So now I'm going to move on to some works in progress. In my last episode, I showed you this project, and I just finished the quilt top. Of course they're sheep. You would expect nothing else, right? Well, this is from a book, as I talked about it more on my last episode, so I won't go into it. But it's from a book by Pat Sloan called Tour Ireland. See, it's on the cover. And what I did to do it a little bit different, I changed the houses because I really wanted a traditional look, a traditional Irish cottage look. And I thought the houses in the book looked more like beach huts. And the other thing I changed was I made the houses, the sheep, and the stars all from wool rather than cotton. And then I did the normal sort of buttonhole stitch over the wool pieces with a little bit of embroidery here and there. But I'm thrilled with this. I put a border on it yesterday. I was very unsure about what to do. And then I came across this old fabric of mine. And it was definitely not what I thought I was going to do, but I really like the way the black background just sort of picks up and accentuates the little feet and the little faces of the sheep. So I'll be hand quilting this. I don't know, who am I doing all this hand quilting? I hand quilted this, the sheep quilt behind me, and I really enjoyed it. So I think this will be another one that I'll get basted and be able to sit and hand quilt. So another work in progress that I am almost done with is, it's in my, oh, guess what? Another sheep. No, this is not the sheep episode. That was last time. But, you know, they keep reappearing. They multiply, you know, those sheep. So this is, I just wanted to show you this bag from Tanny Casey, which I really love. She makes gorgeous bags. It's the only one I have from her. And it's very sturdy. It's really well made, and it's perfect size for a sweater. But anyway, I've made great progress on my Felix sweater. I believe the designer is Amy Christopher. And looky here. I've finished the sleeve. Those are just that's not jewelry. Those are my markers where I decrease the sleeve. And tonight I shall pick up this other sleeve and get going on that. What a great pattern. I love these yarn overs here, the detail. It just makes a very simple pattern into something kind of elegant, very pretty. I pulled it out at one point because I found a mistake on the raglan sleeve, and then I decided I wasn't happy with, I did a 1x1 rib and I wasn't happy with the way it looked on this thick yarn. So I went back all the way to the beginning and I just cast on again and I did 2x2 rib. So that's what I did on the sleeve as well as the bottom. I always like that look better. I just think it's neater. So I'm really thrilled with this. And I'm wondering, my friend Carla from Carla Knits Podcast, did I go ahead of you? I don't know. You're a pretty fast knitter. But she's knitting the same sweater, same yarn, but different color. And I spoke about Carla last time. Check out her podcast, please. It's really great. Carla Knits Podcast. I used Queensland yarn. The name of the yarn is Kathmandu. It's just color 141. And it's very old yarn I've had for a long time. And I don't know if you can still find the color. It's pink and it has a little gray fleck in it, as well as here and there a darker fleck of pink. Very nice yarn. And it's Aran weight, so this is why it's worked up really quick. So that's my work in progress for knitting. There are others. My quilting work in progress is something I've talked about a little bit, but haven't gotten into it too much. But it's from Sitar's book, Patches of Blue. Sitar is the person the creator behind Laundry Basket Quilts, and I know any quilter out there is familiar with her. This quilt that I'm working on is it was a 2018 block of the month that she ran. That's how far behind I am. I've always wanted to make this quilt and I just never got around to it. But break it down this year into monthly installments and then I'd finally get it done. Here is a picture of the quilt. Isn't that gorgeous? What she did was take quilts from her Patches of Blue book, and you just do one of the blocks, or several, in some cases more than one of the blocks like these. There's 2 of these. There's multiple baskets. She took blocks from each quilt in the book and turned it into a sampler. So I've broken it down like she did by month. So that's my sort of major quilting project this year. 3 friends of mine decided they wanted to do a quilt along this year, but they had another quilt in mind. They're doing the Sugar and Cream quilt, which, oh, I didn't look up the author of that book. If I remember, I will put it down below. But they're making a Sugar and Cream quilt, which is very neutral fabrics. But they're making one quilt. I'm making this quilt, but we've divided it through the year, and we're sharing as we finish our blocks. We're sharing those together. So it's still a quilt along no matter what you do. The Sugar and Cream quilt, by the way, is beautiful, but it wasn't on my radar of a quilt to make this year, and I just didn't want to add something else into the mix. You know how you get? So this is great because I can do something that I've long wanted to do, but still be part of that group. So what I did to sort of commemorate that is I sort of am using a notebook or kind of journal type format for this. Yeah. I pasted the picture of the quilt here. Then I wrote just a little thing about why I wanted to make this quilt and how I'm working with my friends on this block of the month. And so it just kind of gives a history of why I'm making this quilt. And then what I did was every month I put in, this is the block which I printed from the website. I write down things like fabric requirements or sometimes cutting directions, and then I take a picture of the finished block, and then I'll write a little thing about what was going on around the time or in that month that I finished the block. So that's been kind of fun. And I've said before, I'm not much of a journaler, but I've enjoyed doing this for this quilt because it's spread out in time and I don't feel like this rush to finish this quilt. So I'm trying to put a little more behind it. This was the February, and these were the baskets that I had to make. And these are the baskets that I made. And I did the same thing. I mentioned what was going on in the month of February. This most recent month of March, I made 11 of these little 4-inch stars. I sewed them differently than she describes. So I made some notes as to how I was cutting and how I was going to sew these little, flying geese type shapes. I made a sample to make sure I was doing the right thing. And then here's the finished result. And I finished on St. Patrick's Day, so there's a little bit of a shamrock, or not a shamrock, but a 3-leaf clover there. So now I'm on to, some of these months are going to get harder, but now I'm going to start cutting out my April block, which is this pine tree, which I really love. I can't wait to do that one. So this has been just a fun way to add some interest to a quilt. So now let me show you the blocks that I've made. I think she called this Aurora. I'm not really following along with the names. And here are my little baskets. This was February. It's not possible to show 4 blocks at the same time. It's very scrappy. I am using her line, I think a couple of different lines of Laundry Basket Quilts. She has some blue lines, but these were produced after the publication of the Patches of Blue book. Oh, here's one more. And here are some of the stars. I don't have all, there were some others that are separate because they don't get sewn to this piece. I love doing these. Sort of. I don't know. They're a little fussy. And you know what? I cut off a couple points. I don't care. As I've said before, I do not allow quilt police here. So I hope that you're agreeable to that. I wanted to show you something else. Now, this is something that I finished, maybe a year ago or so, maybe a couple years ago. I'm not sure. I think it was more like a year and a half. But I forgot to show this to you in my wool applique episode, which I don't remember the number of it, but it was called Little Woolies, I think. Yeah, Little Woolies. And I forgot to show this to you, but I thought it was appropriate with Easter coming up. And here it is. Isn't it sweet? It did come as a kit. It is wool applique on, well, first of all, it's this lovely piece of linen. You know what? I take that back. It did not come as a kit. I had all these little bits and pieces. And I picked up this little piece of linen, which is a really lovely linen. And then you put the blue squares, a little piece of wool, and you sew those to the background, and then add the bunnies and the flowers and the baskets. The basket is embroidered. You know, the flowers are embroidered, and a lot of French knots in there. But I thought, I love this little thing. I keep it out all year. I don't care that it's Easterish. But to me, it's springish. And by the way, happy spring. Finally, it's here. I don't usually have a segment where I talk about things that I bought because I don't really think that that's necessary. But when I do come across some things that I think I'd like to share with you because I think you would enjoy them too, then I will have that segment, like today. So I think I will call it What Jumped in My Cart? Because, you know, I haven't been out to stores or anything, so I've done a lot of online shopping or a lot of online browsing. And every once in a while, something just drops into your cart, doesn't it? It's like magic. It just shows up. So here are some things for all kinds of, well, here's something for stitchers and for quilters. Is this beautiful book from Kathy Schmitz. Tiny Treasures. And just look at all that. It's all embroidery on hexagons. And there's so many. It's obviously a paid for book, so I don't want to show you too much. But you can see the book is filled with all these little motifs to embroider, and she gives you the stitches, and she makes a whole quilt from them. And she signed the book, which is very exciting. Whether or not I make a whole quilt, I don't know. I also think I would like to just embroider some of these and decide later what I want to do with them. I'm not a fussy hexagon by hand type person, but I could definitely see doing these and doing something with them. Even making a little pincushion, you know, with one of these in the middle or something. Oh, look, I just spied a sheep. I mean, see, they follow me. I don't know what it is. But I also bought from Kathy Schmitz her fabric. She offers two kinds, and one of them is a cotton, she calls it crinkle linen. I think it has it's just a quilter's cotton, but it looks like there's a crinkle running through it. And I have a little bit of that from another project. But she also offers this linen, so it's sort of a textured look. And this was really pretty, so I opted for this, and I think I'll give it a try. It's just a good little hand project you can carry with you. If we ever go on trips again, it will be a nice one to bring. So that, again, Tiny Treasures by Kathy Schmitz. If you're inclined for this kind of thing, or if you just are looking for little... One of my friends said she would use this to make quilt labels and put a little embroidered design on a quilt label. So I thought that was a great idea. I think you can do so much with these patterns. The next book that fell into my cart was this Ultimate Sampler Motif source book by Brenda Keyes. And if you're a floss tuber, you've probably seen this. I know I'm not showing you anything new, but a friend of mine mentioned this, and I thought, I think this, like the other book, could come in really handy. If you're designing some of your own cross stitch, or you want to make a little label or a little something, there are so many charts in here. There are alphabets. There are all kinds of little motifs. You could design, if you were smart and talented, unlike me, you could design your own sampler, or you can just look at all the houses. I mean, you could do anything with this, with counted cross stitch. And there's so much, there's borders. I mean, come on. You could just have this and nothing else and be all set. Oh, and there's animals. I love my animals. Well, so that's it. For counted cross stitchers, I think that this is a good thing to drop into your cart too. So then for quilters, I came across this book mentioned on some other podcasts. I don't even remember which one. I've been watching a lot of them. And this is a Lori Holt book, Farm Girl Vintage. And it just has the cutest... I'm not always given to making these cutesy quilts, but I mean, this is adorable. Plus, it has some little traditional blocks. It has some, some kind of theme. If you want a little chicken, if you want cherries, I think there's strawberries. Oh, there's a sheep. And and each pattern, each quilt block comes in 6-inch or 12-inch square. So I think this is a great little source book for all kinds of quilt blocks. If you have a quilt guild or something and you're doing a block of the month, this would be a fantastic source book for that. And she keeps it simple in Lori Holt's way. She keeps things simple, but you still have to know what you're doing. But there can be a lot of pieces on these things too. There would be great blocks for project bags, and that kind of thing. So Farm Girl Vintage by Lori Holt is another good find that jumped into my cart. So now it's time for something old, which, in keeping with the spring season and also Easter, if you celebrate like I do, I have a little Easter quilt that was probably made 30 years ago. My little Easter basket with the chocolate bunny. So this is machine pieced, hand appliqued, and hand quilted. I have no idea where I got this pattern. I believe it came from some sort of small booklet that had a calendar quilt in it. So this was obviously the April block. I love the block so much that I ended up doing something else with it. So I have two something olds today. This one is my quilted vests for April. First of all, I just did string piecing on the front with some pretty spring fabrics. I found this little pin, so that has lived on the vest. And on the back, guess what? It's the Easter basket and the chocolate bunny. And the basket is different fabric than the wall hanging, but there is the chocolate bunny. So that is my episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Thumbs up. So I wish anyone who celebrates Easter a very happy Easter. I wish you all happy spring. Next time I make a video, it will be officially baseball season. And so until next time, I hope all of your stitches bring joy. Take care.